Welcome to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, a podcast helping you to understand your horses in a calm, connected way. This week, live from a very sweaty, cricket-ridden, hot, tropical area in the north of Australia, we've got Mark sitting in an arena in the semi-darkness. He's going to answer some questions from our members. This week is all about under-saddle questions. First one is from Renee. And she says, "Hi Mark, after our recent clinic unlocking Buddy's brace and shutdown, he's going much better and leading nicely even at the float. She had big problems getting Buddy in the float to the clinic and we worked on that, and then she got home and worked on it some more. So well done, Renee. Under saddle, she's been letting him walk around the arena with no legs and picking up a rein if he stops. This has been great. So she asked for a trot and he just stops dead. If she asks him to walk with a rein, he does so, but as soon as she put legs onto the trot, he stops again. So she's wondering, Mark, are there any tips on getting him to be more responsive to those legs?"
Yeah, it's become a habit in him to block on the legs. So it's been years of sort of going, I don't want to go in that direction, and someone's going to kick me in that direction. So the legs have become like a hindrance to him. So it's almost like an automatic backward thought with him. And that's why, I was showing you techniques to get him to kind of unlock that thought and let go of that thought in the reins and start to travel, which is really important. So, sometimes when they block up in the legs, you just go turn. And then I would set up a lot of situations. So I try and, like what I was saying, and you would have heard me say this before, but I just sort of, say it again because it's a good reminder, is for horses like him that had a lot of probably negative transitions. What I mean by negative is it's like he's been ridden and say there was 1 million kicks in his life, maybe more, there's probably billions of kicks, I don't know, that people have used their legs on him. How many of those, or what percentage of those has been a positive response or a negative response? And I'd say it's been a lot higher than 50%. He's probably had 70% negative responses to legs, and then he's probably, had all these responses which were no responses, and then how many positive responses? So you've got to set up positive responses. So something I would encourage is keep his feet moving with the reins for a while. This is just one tactic. It's more of a mental tactic to get in there. And when his feet get stuck, just steer him until he lets go of that freeze, and then he might move at whatever speed. And when he lets go of that thought and he's going off somewhere, then give him maybe 200 metres back for home, and then say go forward for home. So find the direction which is the most favourable direction for him and ask him to go forward. And then when he gets halfway to that destination, you might start to steer him again, steer him back away, and then until he's moving and his thoughts are going away from home, or the magnet it's not necessarily home, it could be just whatever the magnet is. And then what you might want to do is do that again. When he's feeling like he wants to go that way, go straight into a fast trot, like get in fairly strong with the legs and try and get him to go fast. Okay, when he goes fast, then let him, say good, and maybe get him come back all the way to his mates or whatever, and then turn, use the reins to get him go away again, and see if you can stack up 50 or 100 transitions where he hasn't said no to the legs. This means you've got to be quite creative, and it also means that you've got to not have a destination yourself and not just want to go for a trail ride with your friends and go off checking out things. This is just a purely lesson training to get him to start respond better to the legs. Okay. There's another thing. I'd put a belly rope on him. I'd teach him to lead with a belly rope. And if you pull on the belly rope, it gets all funny and frozen. Kind of bump it or pull it, or put a fair bit of pressure on it a bit till he starts to wake up to it and move a bit. And maybe spend 2 or 3 or 4 days putting a belly rope on him and pulling forward with that belly rope. So you walk off ahead in front of him, you pull forward on the belly rope, and then get him to travel forward with that belly rope, and then until he just floats forward with it. And that's going to teach him to be more aware of his rib cage and start to think forward to that feeling of something on his rib cage. You can help him in the early stages with a bit of feel on his head, but I would tend to try and get it mostly done through the belly rope. The other thing I'd also look at is the backing him up into your legs, but don't overdo that one. So basically back him up, bump him with your legs, fairly big bumps to get him to sort of really know where your legs are, and then loosen the reins, and then say squeeze to go forward. If he sort of sucks backwards, then back him up. So you already got him thinking backwards. So if a horse is thinking backwards and you're bumping him, when you let off on the reins and say, would you like to go forwards, the second thing he might do is go, I'd like to have a forward thought now. But when he's thinking, when legs just are an automatic backward thinker for him, then having him thinking backwards first, then he's going to take on a forward thought a lot easier. Sounds a bit funny, I know it sounds a bit confusing, but what happens is by backing them up and saying, here's my legs, they get aware of your legs, and then you say, now, let's softly lead forward with my legs. Okay, that's another thing you can also look at to help him. But try all those three things and see how you go. But positive transitions, try asking him to go forward where he wants to go for a while is going to be really helpful. And be patient. You know, some horses take weeks and months to kind of get something because it's taken him years to be like this. So it might take you a little while to get him out of that. Anyway, good luck with it.
Okay, so Mark, I asked you that question first because it may just help Angelica with the with her question, which is really similar, but I'm going to go through it because it's slightly different but similar. So Angelica has posted a question. She has a mare who was started last year using obedience method. She came to her in August, so she's had her for just over half a year. She's extremely anxious and spooky. So she started working her according to your philosophy. She took away all that drive and chasing. She's now much better. They have a great bond and she feels that she trusts her. She's able to ride her in the arena using the saddle and a bitless bridle after she discovered that a bit made her very tense. So well done, Angelica. That's wonderful that you've been able to make so many changes and positive changes. You can see them. So, you know, Mark's always quite heavily trying to help people understand these negative effects of drive and chase. And it's wonderful when you hear, you know, good news stories like yours. So the problem that Angelica's got, though, Mark, is that she was responding to leg aids and she was less and she's become less responsive to rein aids. She was previously trained mostly with leg aids and not much rein, so mostly passenger riding. A few days ago, Angelica had her in the round yard and she just stopped short. No response to the legs without the rein, no response to an open rein without the leg. So she was separating the two but got no response. She was, however, relaxed and calm and had a soft eye. She just didn't want to move forward. So is there anything that she can now do to increase her motivation to move forward? And maybe can you explain what might be happening with Angelica's horse?
Yeah, good work with everything you've been doing, and it is a long road to listen to horses, but then also provide education and information to them that tries to keep them in a positive frame of mind and keep them searching is going to be a lot more difficult than just going to sharper spurs and pushing them along. But the problem is with whips and spurs and pushing a horse and making it do what you want to do is the long-term negative effect is so you know, detrimental on the horse that it's not a nice riding horse for the person either, because they just become stiff and braced and unhappy. So this is a harder road at the start because you have to be thoughtful, you have to make good decisions, you've got to be a bit creative. But in some respects you find it's going to get a lot easier, and you can see that now, though your horse may not be going forward sometimes. There's a lot of softenings and happenings there that are making your horse feel a lot better and be a lot more pleasure to be around. So just with the not wanting to go forward, the open rein, if leading is like, think of your reins as like leading a foal or a young horse. So imagine you're walking off with that rope and that horse follows wherever that rope goes. Once you see the reins and feel it like that on those horses, then the horses will start to follow them like that. So what's happening, your horse is bending and it's not following the rest of the rein. So you've got to keep going with the rein. So maybe take the rein shorter. And because you're in a side pull, you can get away with this. You're not going to sort of damage your horse's mouth or anything. But once you take an open rein, go open and up and keep lifting. the horse is going to get out of balance and think this is a bit difficult here, but you've got to keep pressure in that rein while it's open, and if it's open, you can't go any further open, then it's got to go backwards and open and up at the same time. So it's like an angle that's coming back, like you imagine tipping water back over your shoulder like that. The rein's going back and up at the same time. And as you're picking that rein up, the horse is sort of going to get uncomfortable and start to go, I can't hang on here for long enough. What I've given my head, but I can't go up any further. So eventually it's going to have to rebalance itself to find some comfort in there, because it doesn't want to stay crooked forever. So basically you just wait and hold, and then she'll move, and then she'll rebalance, and then she'll go, I'll just follow the feel and rebalance. So her objective is then to stay in balance with the rein. So then all you do is set up, like I call it the 2-second rule, where the horse's feet aren't allowed to stop for more than 2 seconds. I don't use my legs at all. I just pick up a rein till the horse starts moving, and then I loosen it. Pick up a rein, or the horse inevitably loosens it because it finds its balance in the rein. So it does most of the loosening in that rein. So you just hold pressure till the horse rebalances, and then you try again. Left rein, right rein. You can even do the backup, until basically when you loosen out on that rein, the feet are starting to move and the thoughts are starting to search again. And you'll see the horse start to open up and search. Okay, the problem with adding too much pressure from behind to get them going is they think back on the pressure and get a little, confused, or get a little stubborn because they're kind of like sucking back and they don't like that pressure chasing them from behind. So then once that's all happened and she's starting to move around, then you can start to sort of add legs. The other thing I'd also do is, like a lot of questions come through, but is get her to get that leading one happening. So you might do that over 3 or 4 days, and then take her somewhere and get on her and ride her back to the place she wants to go to, and sort of put a bit of leg in there. And if she's already got a forward thought, add a little bit of impulsion in those legs, because it's obvious that in the past she has gone towards with your legs. Someone's taught her to move off legs, so you can still tap into that. It's just that you're going to do it more in a positive way. So through the reins, get her to steer, let go of that stickiness and start to move her thoughts somewhere, so she moves somewhere with her feet, and then take her back to the place that she wants to go with the legs. So the more desirable place, you say, bump, bump, squeeze, squeeze, get her to go forward with the legs and get her to travel forward with the legs. Also, belly roping, getting horses to lead forward softly with legs is also very important. So that, you can put a belly rope on them, you pull a belly rope forward as you're going forward, and they lead forward off the belly rope. That's also going to help a lot. But try just up with the rein, lift and open at the same time. You find she won't be as stuck, and you just got to hang in there and wait a bit.
Well, I'm glad I asked that question separately, because it was quite different. So thank you, Mark. All right, Viv, this question is for you. Viv has an ex-pacer who doesn't pace anymore. But when she rides him at a trot, he seems out of balance and she's sort of thrown a bit to the right in the saddle. His canter is absolutely fine. What she's wondering is, would walk to trot transitions help improve this out of balanceness?
Yeah, for sure, Viv. But the biggest thing I think you'd want to work on with most pacers, I find there's a lack of confidence, because they can trot. A lot of them can trot, and the ones that were less inclined to be genetically gaited horses. So the most popular harness racing in Australia is the pacing. Trotting is quite rare. So most pacers that we have, most harness racing is pacing. In Australia, but so not all those horses are gaited horses. They have to be taught to pace. So because of that, in most of those paces that I get, there's a kind of nervousness at the end of the walk. So when they go to their fastest walk, they get a bit worried, and they kind of like go, and they stiffen up and they go, I've got to trot, pace. The best thing you can do is just work on a nice walk up transition and down, get the accelerator walking up to the fastest walk, and then let them come back down again, and then up until they're really, really soft at that walking up and the accelerator. And then what you sort of do is you do that so many times until they feel like, I just might want to trot now, and they don't. And there's less anxiety in that up transition, especially when you're getting close to the fastest walk. So when you get right to the tippity top of the walk, and they'll start to think about the next gait. Now that gait could be a pacing thought or a trotting thought. And usually because they go, I've got a pace, and it's been a man-made gait in them, like half man-made in some, more man-made in others, then they get a bit worried, and there's always a block right at the end of the walk. But if you get them doing that transition up and down the walk nice, there's a point where they relax a bit, and they'll naturally, and they're feeling good. If they feel good with the accelerator, they'll naturally find a bit of a trot. And as soon as they found that trot, just lead them back into the walk again. Work on the transition, like you said in the question, like you mentioned. Should I work on transitions? I'd say yes. Don't just keep them travelling at the same trot. Work on a bit of transition, but also you do want to work on maintaining trot, because maintaining a trot for longer, when they've done a soft transition into trot, and it feels okay, just let them trot. Let them feel like they can trot, and become, So you've got to sort of have your energy pill and get on your horse and allow them to trot for a while, so they can sort of just carry that gait and go, it's okay to trot, and then you work on some transition, and then you work on holding a trot until they just feel good. But also when you're doing it, you've got to be mindful that you're changing your diagonals as well, so you're strengthening both diagonals. So you just pick a front leg, and then when it goes forward you stand up, and then in 50 metres, 100 metres, you pick the other front leg and rise up and down to that. Also, lots of soft bending. Get your horse bending better in its turns, hindquarter yields, all that sort of stuff with the reins. The better the bend in the horse, the less likely they are to pace, because it's a very rigid, straight gait. And the softer the horse steers, the better it backs, all those things, because the back up is also a 2-beat diagonal rhythm. The better they back up, the better they trot. So, all those things are going to help them in the endeavour to trot better.
Wow, some great tips there. Thank you, Mark. Right, the final question for this question and answer session is from Andrea, and Sarah and Nicole are also super interested to find out the answer from you. Mark, what do you do? How do you manage a horse that's left in the paddock with a buddy that has a bigger separation anxiety than the horse that you're riding out on? Have you got any tips to manage these horses?
This is it's like the weaning process of weaning a foal. It's a similar process, and unfortunately, if some horses have been badly weaned, and that they're actually worse with separation anxiety than the ones that are a bit better. But what I tend to do is I treat it as it's very hard to do, but you have to kind of treat it as the same thing. Is you can. So some people have a horse that's just purely the buddy, and their other one's the riding horse. But with the horse that's not sometimes you can build a better connection, and you have to train the horse that's the buddy horse. You can't just have like a fully untrained horse if it's going to go ballistic every time you take your horse out. So maybe doing a bit of training on the horse that's left at home, and leaving the riding horse at home and taking that other one out a little bit, and then dropping it back and taking it out. Grade the exposure. What I mean by take it out a bit, if you've got a good connection with it, and then drop it back, bring it out, bring it back, get it more confident, and understanding it can leave the other horse. Now obviously because you're with it, it might have a connection with you and still be not so good on its own. So there are other tactics that you can use. The other one is by grading the exposure that you so with your riding horse, you ride in the paddock around the buddy horse, and you just you let them follow a little bit, and then they'll get a bit sick of it, they'll graze a bit, and you'll go and do your thing, and then you ride off a bit and come back, and you grade the exposure by going away and showing that buddy horse that you'll be back. You're only going over there and coming back, and he goes, you're going to come back. And then you go away a bit further and come back, and then you go away a bit further and come back, until you can go away 100, 200 metres and come back, and that buddy horse is going, that's okay. And then they know you don't just kind of suddenly just take your horse away and your horse goes ballistic, because that's what they're thinking, because the last time the horse went away for a long time and they're really worried. So you have to put training into it, which is not, people have a lot of time for when they want to do something for themselves with their horse. But this is donating a fair bit of time to your horse, especially that buddy horse getting used to it. The other thing you can do is you can sort of give your horse a high value feed, like nice loosened hay, and throw that out when you start to work in the paddock with him. So he's a bit distracted with hay, and you do your graded exposure while he's distracted, and he goes, oh, that's okay, she's just over there, this hay's pretty good, and he starts to eat that. And that can slowly help, just wean him off the other horse a bit as well. And then, I think the more you take him out, but also as alternate horses, it's important to alternate them around and take one out, leave the other one at home, and swap it around a bit and put more education on the buddy horse. The better, as I say, the better educated, the more confidence you give horses, especially if you're working on empowering horses a bit more, getting them to think for themselves and that sort of thing. But it's a long process in any rate. But it's like weaning a horse properly. You've got to do it properly, and you've got to, grade the exposure of being away from its mum. And that's the same with that one. Try that and see how you go. And just. But the distraction, and don't overuse the distraction thing all the time, because some people think, oh, beauty, for the first half an hour the horse is fine while it's eating, and then it eats all that hay, and then it panics. But slowly work it that you can go further and start to go out of sight and then come back. And just down the track, let me know how it's going, if they've had any changes, because sometimes feedback is really important for me and for all the other members as well, because what feedback does is, like, I don't always know if that's going to work for your horse. I'm just telling you something that I'd try with horses. But if it's working, let us know. If it's kind of worked a bit, or there's something else that's changed, let us know, because it's always that feedback. Because if I was doing it home myself, I'd be sort of working on feedback and changing it as I went, depending on the feedback. So, sometimes if people have a question that I've answered and half of it's working, half of it's sort of you're still not sure about, it's always good to know the feedback. It's feedback for me to see, what's happened and how we can work in improving it. And it's also feedback for you and everybody else.
Yeah, there's no straightforward answer, is there, Mark? And that's why it's so good to watch you work at clinics, because you could be doing something and you go, well, actually, I'm going to change what I'm doing. I'm going to try this now. And you can I can see you unraveling different ideas and trying different things. And it's sort of like a piece of art for you. It's, always changing and evolving. There's no set program. There's no 1, 2, 3 step method. Every horse is different, and they all need different approaches. So it's very hard sometimes to answer questions just off a sentence. You're not there to see it and see how they're feeling, and and understand the environment they're in. So but you do a fantastic job. And if any of you out there are listening and they're super keen to learn more from Mark, because he is a pretty phenomenal horseman, if you want to ask Mark a question, it is free to all of our online members, and online members have access to over 500 of Mark's training videos. So delve into his fantastic insights. It's only $15 a month. It's a quality membership. It's just that we wanted to price it so that everyone can access it. Just Google Mark Langley horsemanship, you'll find it. Thank you so much to all the questions, to everybody. I think we've just about made the most of the light. I'm sorry about the frogs in the background. We are in tropical Queensland, and that's just nothing we can do about that. We're sitting in the middle of an arena. Mark's teaching tomorrow for the next 4 days, and then he heads down to Maryborough. So if you're in the Maryborough area, you can catch him there for a demonstration on Saturday night.
And people come and also fence it if they want.
And everyone's welcome to come and fence it at Mark's clinics. All right, thank you so much, Mark, for your fantastic answers, and we will see you again next time.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jenny.